I commented to Carol, I think this is more people that showed up to our Cost Accounting 2 class. I'm really impressed. This is a story about English muffins.
Does Scott need that microphone?
I'm good. I'm all set. Thanks. Many of you know that we lost our son about a decade ago. Thatcher is 21. But he had two buddies, Kyle and Dan. They were on a band together in high school. They're actually pretty good musicians. But they're kind of these lovable goofballs. And after high school, after they discovered they weren't going to become the next Dave Matthews Band, Kyle and Dan kind of bounced around. They kind of drifted from one thing to another. Made some bad choices and bad decisions. I lost contact with Kyle, but I stayed in touch with Dan. He's a really sweet guy, very sweet kids. And, you know, kind of moving from one thing to another, bouncing around, not what you traditionally call high achievers by any stretch of the imagination. But I could tell over the years Dan was becoming increasingly anxious and frustrated that, you know, a lot of his peers were moving on. They'd gone to college, they were getting jobs, they were getting married, they were having families. And these two guys were still living in an apartment in Medford, Massachusetts, kind of living paycheck to paycheck. So Dan decides to become a chef, and because he's not the best student on the planet and couldn't afford culinary school, he starts working his way up through kitchens in Boston. And Kyle is kind of a schmoozer, so he lands a job at a local bakery. And Kyle's out selling his product to bakeries in Boston, which are high-end boutique restaurants. And a few of them start asking for English muffins. So his company doesn't sell English muffins, so he goes to his boss, and his boss says, no, we don't carry them. I don't know who does. And Kyle does some research, and he can't find anybody who makes English muffins. So it turns out English muffins, which I now know more than I ever wanted to, are really a pain in the ass to make. They're grilled, they're not baked. They require their own equipment, their own processes, so a lot of bakeries don't want to fool with them. So Kyle goes to his roommate, Dan, who's the chef, and says, hey, can you make an English muffin? And Dan goes like, how hard could that be? So it turns out it's harder than it looks. So they spend about 2 months. They each gain about 20 pounds. They try all these different recipes, trial and error, but eventually they make what they believe is the perfect English muffin. So they make up a few batches in their apartment, and they take them out to all their restaurants, and the restaurants love them. These things are amazing. So they start selling their English muffins to the restaurants in Boston, and they're about 4 weeks in. They've got about 8 accounts, and they think this is okay. This is the real deal. So they both quit their jobs, and which is great. But the only problem is they're making about $400 between them. They have no car, horrible credit, no cash flow, no savings. And so they immediately run out of money. They go to their friends and family. They scrounge around about $3,000. They blow through that, immediately. And I know what's coming because I've been talking to Dan. I get the call. So they tell me about the idea. They're all excited. And I go, okay, this sounds good. They're excited. They're pretty focused. How bad could this get? And how long could this last? So I'm in. I start writing checks. First for ingredients, then for groceries, then for the cable bill, and you name it. And these guys need a lot of help. They have no concept of business, nothing about P&Ls or receivables or payables or Microsoft Excel or anything. And they're these two guys making all natural, highly perishable food product in their apartment in Boston, selling to high-end restaurants. No permits, no licenses, no FDA, no labeling, no tax ID. So I start to get them kind of up and running. And I'm talking to these guys about 3 to 5 times a day. So it's becoming kind of a big deal. And then one day they call, and they're all freaked out. And it turns out their landlord came in. And of course, their apartment is destroyed. The stove's a mess. There's flour everywhere. And he starts eviction proceedings. And he tells them he's going after damages. So they're all freaked out. I said, look, calm down. We're going to be fine. We'll get you a new apartment. We'll find you a place to cook. We'll get you a lawyer. But what are you going to do? Like, how are you going to make your muffins? So they go, well, here's our big idea. We're going to go to our customers, which are the restaurants. And we're going to go in at midnight after they're closed. And we're going to cook muffins till 6 a.m. We're going to clean the place up, and then we're going to take the muffins on the T, which is the subway in Boston, out to all of our customers. And damn if that's not what they did. And this goes on for a couple months. They start moving from kitchen to kitchen because they very soon wear out their welcome at each of their customers. But they're kind of limping along. So then I get a call a couple weeks later, and they're laughing hysterically. And I go, oh my God, what now? So they go, well, we were starting to get orders from out of state. And so we wrote one of the guys back and said, how'd you hear about us? And they said, and the guy wrote back and said, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't see this. I'll send you the link. So he sends us a link. And we're recognized by Zagat as one of the 15 artisanal food companies in America that you need to know about. So now I freak, okay? So unfortunately, most people don't have friends that have run artisan bakeries, but we do, and she's sitting right there. So my first call is to Carol, and I go, holy crap, I tell her the story, and I say, what are the 5 things these guys need to do to live through the month? And she tells me, and I said, that's fantastic. I tell them, I said, when they're ready, do you mind jumping on the phone with these guys? And would you do me a favor? Would you scare the living crap out of them? Because now that they've kind of got the Zagat thing, they've kind of forgot about the eviction, the no cash, the bad credit. So eventually she gets on the phone. She's fantastic. She scares them to death. They're still talking about Carol. Everything she said has come true. I mean, it was very prescient, but it was good. So they kind of, armed with that, they go out and they find an old abandoned pizza place in Medford. It's 500 square feet. We pay for 1,500, but 1,000 is unusable. They buy some ancient equipment. They hire some of their buddies. We hire this lunatic distributor who has me on speed dial. And they start making muffins. And they kind of start stepping up. They start doing some really creative things in terms of social media and events in the local Boston area. And they're starting to make some headway. And then they're at a food fair in Boston, and they're selling muffins hand over fist, and there's 4 deep, and a guy walks up and hands them a card, and he said, are you guys in Whole Foods? And they go, no, we're not ready. He says, well, when you're ready, give me a call. So they call me, and I said, you're ready. So go find out what it is. So Kyle, who's the sales guy, goes out to Men's Warehouse and buys a suit, and he calls me, he says, I love the way I look, So he takes his brother Cam, and Cam's a 21-year-old hip-hop artist who started his own label, who's acting as our business manager. So these two guys go out. And damn if they don't close Whole Foods. So we take about a month going through all the approval processes and everything. And then once they get the approval process, they go out to all the stores in New England. And Kyle and Dan go out and they meet the bakery team leaders and they talk to the staff and they give away free muffins and they do demos. And Kyle starts working his magic at corporate. And Whole Foods falls in love with us. And so they take their own muffins out of their bakery and put them back in grocery with the bread and stuff. And they basically give us this amazing location in all their stores. And our muffins start kind of flying off the shelves. So these guys are, it is. So these guys, they're kind of going around, and I will tell. I could fill 2 hours of stories about this. Some of the lapses in judgment are just legendary, but they're kind of up and running. They're kind of getting it, and their whole kind of outreach program, they start to get recognized in Boston. So now we've been recognized nationally in Food and Wine magazine as one of their 10 obsessions. We've been in the Boston Globe Food Market. We've been on national public radio. So these two guys just through guerrilla warfare and having no money are kind of now on the radar screen. And the kitchen now, we're kind of up and running. Out of this 500 square foot space, last week we produced 35,000 muffins, all handmade, all artisan. We're 2 shifts, we're employing 15 people. Whole Foods has offered to basically fund our growth. They've given us access to their whole Eastern Seaboard distributorship, and they're basically waiting for permission to have us be introduced to other regions. And I'm saying, not yet. So we have to kind of we have to probably raise some more money and look for another bakery. But what's been kind of fun, and probably the best of all, is these two guys who never really experienced a lot of success in their life, they've really kind of stepped up. They've kind of risen to the challenge. You go into restaurants with them in Boston, and they're like rock stars. The chefs come out, and the owners come out, and because everybody knows their muffins. And when they go into corporate, they go to Whole Foods corporate and present to the bakery team leaders. They get these standing ovations because now it's one of the hottest products at Whole Foods. It's been really fun. They've had a lot of help. This is kind of dark, but I said it takes a village to make an English muffin. We have a lot of people talking with them daily and helping them. But the truth is they've really made this happen. And the kind of the lesson that kind of we all took out of this was these two guys reminded us of how wonderful it was to be part of something bigger than yourselves. And for me personally, it was like I would confirm my belief that with a little bit of faith and a lot of patience, good things can happen. So that's the story of Stone and Skillet. When you're done, we have samples. You could certainly, if you want to pay $80 in freight, you can order them. They go bad in about 5 days. But anyway, that's great. But anyway, thanks a lot.